Hey, welcome to the Budget Committee meeting on the 22nd of April. Agenda tonight is to review and approve the minutes from the last meetings, and then to make the recommendations on the warrant articles as presented to us by the Select Board. We've got a couple of sets of minutes to review. We've got the February 25th minutes, which were sent out. We didn't review at the joint meeting, but this was our meeting before the joint meeting. Are there any changes, corrections? Motion?
I know Brian Walker had some changes, but he's not here tonight, so. I think he made Louise aware of them. I don't know if they were changed.
I think those were not to the 25th, those were to the 26th meeting.
All right.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay. Actually, I know there were some corrections that Brian had sent out on the 26th meeting, and I don't know if those got integrated or
That
not.
answered in the second post of the draft that I sent out.
Okay. What I would prefer to do then would be table those minutes until we can make sure that those corrections are in there, if that's acceptable to people, and we can move those to the next meeting.
Which will be when?
We'll set that at the end of
Okay.
the meeting. So, that's agreeable? Okay. And we have the minutes of the March 25th meeting. Any changes, additions, corrections to those?
Was that the meeting that the select board ran, or?
It's the one, yeah, it's the one, that was the one we started, we turned it over to them, and then,
So there mustn't be much there. It was a select board meeting, right?
well, we still have the minutes that, because it fell under a budget committee, we then turned it over to them to do the presentation.
All right.
Make a motion, we accept the meetings as written.
Second?
Discussion? Those in favor? Carries.
You seconded that, please? Thank you.
Okay. You all received copies of the proposed warrant, or the warrant articles. The items that we would be, that is asking for recommendations from the Budget Committee is starting at Article 11 and then going forward. What I'll do is I'll read the article, and then we'll get a motion from a member, and then open for discussion and handle it that way. So Article 11 says, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen on behalf of the town to sell and dispose of any property acquired by the town for non-payment of taxes pursuant to the policy adopted by the selectmen as may be amended from time to time. The policies remain consistent with the state statutes and laws, and in all cases conveyance to be made by a municipal quitclaim deed.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Dana?
Before we get going too much here tonight, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make this committee aware that we do not have minutes of the select board meeting on the 16th. We don't know how they voted, were the votes 4-0, 3-1, 3-2. I'm not sure how they voted. I couldn't stay for the whole meeting, since we didn't have, any articles to follow. I saw no point in staying. So if you can ask what, you know, how did the votes go? Do you know, or?
It is my understanding that they passed on 4-0,
4-0.
4-0 votes.
So you had 4 selectmen voting on all these recommendations. One of them was absent, and I don't have to name names here, for all the budget meetings. And that same selectman, I feel, should have recused himself on certain articles if they did vote 4-0, because he was voting for money to be paid to his business, because he does work for the town. I think a recusal on those articles should have been the proper thing to do. Just a comment. We can go forward, but that's something that we have to think about before we make votes tonight.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the recommendation comes down to us as the selectmen have recommended a certain item. What their vote is, that's their internal order, meeting rules, how they handle that.
It would be nice and it would be prudent for this committee, we're an elected committee, to get those minutes before a meeting. That's why when I emailed you, Mr. Chairman, that from in the future, that Monday night meetings are not good for this committee because town employees aren't in their office, except Don Willard and, you know, a few other people that work Mondays, but we can't get answers from them on Monday. And you work during the day, so it's hard for you to get those answers for us. So, you know, in the future, I think, you know, Wednesday night meetings or Thursday night meetings would be more advantageous for this committee to work under, because we could get answers from the, you know, from the department heads.
Oh, you know, now, we're a little bit beyond, you know, we've got a motion on the floor, but, you know, the meeting date, the night of the meeting is always something that's up for discussion when we have our organizational meeting to say, you know, and, you know, my recommendation there would be to wait until after the election to find out who's on the committee, so we can find out what conflict dates exist and whatnot. When Monday night was established, it was because that was the least conflicted
Yeah.
night for.
I just want to
members
let
of
the public know, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
that's my, we can
Duly
move
noted.
on now.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to recommend the article. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Joe Bruno, Citizen, for Christina Court, also selectman. Is there any reason why the Budget Finance Committee would not recommend on Article 10, the sale of the easement?
Well, I was wondering,
Since it's an integral
Yeah.
part of the budget.
yeah, in my opinion, we should. It wasn't on the, it wasn't listed there, but, in my opinion, we should, so. So we'll, if we move back to Article 10, which is, shall the town of Raymond authorize the Board of Selectmen to convert the existing tower lease site at 90 Patricia Avenue, property owned by the town, to perpetual easement for a one-time payment to the town of $900,000 by approving and executing a document in a form subsequent and substantially similar to the document shown in Exhibit A, which lists the terms of the easement. The selectmen recommend approval.
It's Exhibit 1, isn't it?
Yeah. Exhibit 1 is,
Yeah, I
is,
thought you said Exhibit A, right?
I'm sorry, Exhibit 1.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Move to recommend Article 10.
Second?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
No, Dana.
No?
I'm just curious as to the legal process here. Was this Exhibit 1 drafted by their attorney and reviewed by ours, or vice versa?
This is drafted by both attorneys, you know, it's a contract goes back and forth until they all agree on the wording, along with the town agreeing to the wording.
Other, Dana?
But by accepting this recommendation, Ralph, doesn't necessarily mean that we agree with how the funds are being
No,
divvied. Okay.
no, it does not. It just, this is, you know, until you could divvy the funds, you first have to authorize
Yeah, well,
being able
that,
to get them.
the budget is, you know, is pretty much, a lot of it's based on that passing.
Yep.
I understand that. Thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 12, to see what date taxes will be due and set an interest rate for unpaid amounts. The selectmen recommend the first half to be due October 31st, 2013, and the second half to be due April 30th, 2014, with interest rate at 7% on any unpaid balances.
Move to recommend?
Second?
I'm assuming that's an annual percentage rate?
Yes.
To just, it isn't really clear. if
Set
it's-
by the state.
Okay.
Discussion? Oh, yes. Dana?
Is there any reason why we can't go lower than that? I mean, people are tight with money. I mean, you can't get blood out of a rock. At 7%, that's set by the state, but I think we could do better. I think our committee should, I mean, there's a lot of people that are hurting. The news today, obviously, with dielectric, doesn't help our town any. I think going after 7% with people that have been working and living in this town and have a hard time paying their taxes, 7%'s a little high. Heck, you can get interest rates now for a lot less than that, and I know it has nothing to do with that, but I think we could do a lot better, like probably 3 or 4. I'd like to see a change in that number, whether we do it or the select board does it. Obviously, if we do it, the select board would probably have to approve it, but I think 7% is a little steep. So I'd like to make a motion that we change that percentage as this committee to 4%.
Okay, so you're offering an amendment,
I'm offering an amendment,
and at what percent?
4%.
I'll second that for the discussion purposes.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Wait, you said it was set by the state, so,
Maximum level.
oh, the maximum level, okay.
So, yes.
The idea, and if that wouldn't come into play at 4%, but the idea is if you set it too low, historically, people would be an incentive not to pay your taxes if you could find some instrument that would, you know, pay a greater rate of interest. But historically, the town has set it at the maximum. That's what most towns do.
Because you can then use the town as a bank.
Right.
Other discussion? Peter?
Yes, I'd like to say if we're looking to save taxpayers' money, this may not be the best place to do it. When the school budget is voted upon, you have a better chance of saving a lot more money than this will provide.
I've never seen the school budget be turned down, Peter, in the years that I've lived here. It has been turned down at town meeting, but it always comes back and bites us, and it's not gonna change.
But there are
We have no say over the budget now, except at the ballot box,
That's right.
and what
And
happens
there,
at the
and
ballot
even there,
box.
it's limited because of the size of the town.
And get ready, because this year it's gonna be up there.
Okay, is there-
This is just a little bit, I thought that would be helpful to people who struggle to make that first and second payment. you know, probably most of us sitting here, can pay our taxes on time, but I know a lot of people that struggle, and, construction's not doing well right now, and, I don't know how it's gonna be in the years to come, but, the economy in the state of Maine is not good. This was just a little bit to give the taxpayers a little bit. If they're late, they don't have to pay as much. So if you wanna go with the 7%, that's fine.
Peter?
If the budget holds as we're proposing at this stage of the game, this will be, I think, 6 years in a row that the municipal budget has not been increased. And that is saving money and providing a very flat tax rate for the citizens.
That's 7 years.
Excuse me.
This is year number 7.
This will be number 7. Yeah,
But you gotta keep in mind, Peter, that the town is a $1 billion town now. It's not a, $880 million town anymore. The value of our town is growing, so we're, it all works together with the mill rate. What the mill rate is really, it's not that big of a deal.
Other
It's a really big deal because we're LD1 compliant for 7 straight years, and so I just want to make that clear. The mill rate, the growth in the valuation has not been that significant over that period of time. Certainly not 800 to $1 billion.
How, I don't have the numbers right here, maybe you do, Mr. Chairman, but how much interest payment does the town receive under the 7%? It's the same here as last year, the prior year, and I wondered if we had a figure.
You mean what percentage,
What percent
you mean what percentage
did we
we have
bill?
that
I
are
don't have a
delinquent in
figure, but
payment?
I can tell you that the town's collections are very, very good in the upper 90-odd percentile.
Mr. Chairman, can I remove that request, because it's not gonna go anywhere anyway, so let's vote on the 7%.
Well, it's right, actually, it's right here, I believe it's this number, it's 35. It's budgeted for 35,000, but in the past it's been budgeted, it's been 60,000. I'm sorry, 30, it's been 35,000, and it was 30,000 back in 11-12, so 30 to 35,000.
That's total interest.
It said interest on taxes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But that's also people who have not paid their taxes for years, and then when we go to possess the property, they come and pay it, so.
But that's all still 7%.
That's right.
Right, so it's,
Okay, it's been requested, there's a request to remove the amendment because it was seconded. There has to be agreed to by the seconder, so
Sure.
Steve, do you agree? Okay, so the amendment is removed. We're at the original article, which is at the 7%. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Let's see. Article 13, see if the town will vote to set an interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes at 7% for the fiscal year. Selectmen recommend Article 13.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Bob, second. Marshall, seconded by Bob. Discussion?
Yes, Ralph. There seems to be some duplicity between Article 12 and 13 in reference to the 7% of unpaid taxes. Are we repeating ourselves with the two?
No, one is, the first is for unpaid taxes to us. The second, the article we're moving on now is for if someone puts in for an abatement,
Okay.
and the abatement is granted, then we pay 7% on what that abated amount is. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of town-owned personal property with a value not to exceed $35,000.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, who moved that? Dana?
Yep.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. To see if the town will, Article 15, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to borrow from appropriated fund balance surplus as they deem advisable to meet the unanticipated needs of the community that occur during the fiscal year. The selectmen recommend an amount not over $75,000.
Move to recommend an amount not more than $75,000.
Second.
Discussion?
Yep.
Dana?
That amount, and, you know, Pete, you're gonna be surprised I'm saying this, but, 1 year we had to buy a truck, and we had to take money out of other budgets to buy that truck. I don't think you can buy a truck for $75,000, and I'd like to see that amount raised to $85,000. So I'm making an amendment to the recommendation. Is that enough to buy a truck, Nathan? Not a new one.
Is there a second on the amendment? If there's no second, then the amendment dies on the table, and we're at the original figure of $75,000 for discussion.
Just to add what Dana said, I think the type of purchases that you're referring to would be under the CIP allocation and not an undesignated, unanticipated need. So I don't think it would come from this.
This is more for an emergency or something that's, you know, a bit unprecedented. I think the reason that we did the other, the transfer among accounts when we bought the dump truck was there was an opportunity that arose. We had money available in the fire department account, and so it made sense to do that. I'm not sure that we dipped into this fund at all. It's very, very rare that you would ever expend from this fund. So I don't know if that really applies in the case of a dump truck.
Thank you for setting that straight.
Other discussion?
Has this ever been used for
The truck,
the truck? That was it, okay.
we have 60,000 in
Did we take 50,000 out of it for the truck?
it.
60? I didn't recall that, but it's
And then
very,
we
very,
borrowed from,
it's very rare that we would use this at all. And this has to go to select board meeting?
Yes.
Public, all of that, okay.
Well, no, the selectmen can use that $75,000 without going to town meeting.
Not town meeting, but it has to go to a select board meeting.
Has to be at a,
And
they
board
have to
by
approve it
the
at the
select
Yeah.
select board meeting.
Right.
But above that recommendation, you gotta
Right.
go to a town meeting.
Yep.
Correct. Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No? Let's see. Article 16, to see if the town will authorize the selectmen for the fiscal year 2013-14 to transfer funds between appropriation accounts as long as the grand total of all appropriations is not exceeded. Any such transfers to be approved only at a properly called public meeting of the selectmen.
Move to recommend?
Second?
Discussion.
Yes. Is there a cap on these transfers? Because it doesn't say it here.
The
Or is
cap-
the
the
cap
cap
referred
is-
back to the 75,000?
No, the cap refers to the total budget for the town. They can't exceed the total budget,
I understand that part.
but there's not
They
a,
can move within that.
right.
Okay.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to authorize the use of town employees and/or town-owned equipment or independent contractors hired by the town for maintenance on private roads in special and certain circumstances wherein the public interest. Note of explanation, 3 examples where the town employees and equipment may be necessary, is tying in work done on a public road that intersects a private road, plowing snow on a private road to clear the way for emergency response apparatus, and in rare emergency situations, maintaining private roads for school bus access to special education students as deemed necessary.
Move to recommend.
Second,
Who seconded?
I did.
Discussion?
I need to recuse myself from this one.
Okay. Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet committed pursuant to 36 MRSA subsection 506.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
If there's a prepayment, is there a discount?
7%?
I mean, how about a 2% discount? Other towns do it. Yeah, they do.
Some towns do that, but of course you have to build the cost of that into the budget. And so the thinking on it was that it was a subsidy for those who can pay early. So that was seen as a disadvantage to people who might have difficulty paying. So that's why towns moved away from that maybe 20 years ago. There may still be some out there, but that was my recollection on it.
So that people who have difficulty paying have to pay 7%, and the rich people can't get a
Well,
2%
the discount
discount.
would be an advantage. If you could pay early and you get a discount, then you have to build that cost into the budget. So the rest of the people who couldn't or didn't pay early would have to pay that cost, is the thinking.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Article 19, see if the town will vote to appropriate $198,932 from the tax increment of the Pipeline Route 302 Tax Increment Financing District for fiscal year 2013-14 projects proposed in the TIF development program.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Dana?
I'd like to make an amendment to change the amount for the Raymond Waterways to 15,000.
So you're recommending decreasing it
Decrease.
by 2,000, by
Yep.
2,500? Is there a second on that before I start calculating?
Second.
Let's see.
Well, that's what we're here for tonight, right? If we can make adjustments,
Yes,
all right?
yeah, I'm just calculating what the
All right.
amount is, so I have the right amount in the motion. So you're,
No, I just don't want to get anybody upset, I mean,
so the amendment right now on the floor is to change the figure to 196,432. That is what we're discussing right now.
What was the original number for the Raymond Waterways? Has this already been reduced by a few dollars? Is that,
They asked for 20,000.
okay. That's what I
They
thought.
got 15,000 last year.
They're getting a new boat this year to remove more milfoil. So instead of the $5,000 increase, we settled on $2,500. By putting them in the TIF account, it's advantageous to the town because it doesn't count in our valuation.
they also have money in the bank, and they were pretty reluctant on telling us how much they had in the bank, so.
Steve?
It's not specific to the amendment, but between alternative 4 and this warrant, other stuff has been moved into the TIF.
Correct.
What specifically happened? What is it?
Well, what we did is, what was done was, and the reason we did it is because we hadn't fully used all the money available to us in the TIF, so we took some things from other accounts, moved it into there, as long as they fell under the definition of what the TIF is, so that we would, so that it wouldn't be affecting the other, or wouldn't be adding to the other part of the budget. I mean, that is still the same total number of dollars would get spent, but because it's in the TIF, it's not part of the regular budget.
Okay. My question, to a certain degree, is we've pulled these two entities out, in a warrant situation, so when we go to the public meeting, the people are gonna see the Historic Society and the Raymond Waterways, but we don't list everything else that's in there.
Yeah, it's.
And I'm just wondering, what's the reasoning and the decision to kind of highlight those two parts of that $198,000?
And not the others.
And not other parts?
I agree.
I think the reason that was done was because and it goes back, sometimes text just gets carried forward. But when those got originally moved into that account, they wanted, people wanted to know where it went to. So, whether that explanatory note needed to be there or not.
I mean, example, I believe you moved that $20,000 for GIS into here.
Correct.
I think.
Correct.
And it was taken out of TIF prior to that.
Right.
And moved back. Now, how can we do that, Rolf? You've been around forever. I mean,
Because
tell me.
it could be done, it could be done because what was happening is we were butting up against the limit of the TIF in the 1 year, so it was brought out of there, brought back into the budget, brought back into the other part of the budget.
Yeah?
Because there was available space left now in the TIF because of some of the bonds reducing, then we moved it back in there because it was an allowable item under the TIF, but you can't overspend the TIF amount. So it was done to minimize the overall impact on where it was in the overall budget, but more importantly, to make the maximum use out of the TIF funds that are available to us.
I think I understand it. I'm not sure, but it's hard to understand that TIF financing it because you move stuff in and take it out and move it back in, and it's just it's crazy.
Well, and part of it is because you've got to on the bond payments.
Well, I
where
realize
those
that,
are
but,
decreasing. The fact is, the whole purpose of the TIF is your whole purpose should be to maximize the amount that you can use out of there.
But why did GIS all of a sudden reappear in the TIF? At the beginning of the budget season, it was out of the TIF. So
Right.
it's just, I think it's shady, and I don't know. That's me. Whatever.
Peter?
Well, these expenses, whether they're in the TIF or out of the TIF, still are money, our dollars that the town will have to collect from the taxpayers. They're in the tax rate.
Correct.
Right.
Right. Well, in the TIF, what happens is you're not, I mean, the differential between what it was assessed at when the TIF is done and where it is now, that differential comes to be used in the TIF fund, but it doesn't count against your total town valuation, which then is what the county tax calculates out against. So by having the TIF, you're saving, it's helping us on the county tax and things like that, as well as on the school side, because anything that ties to town valuation, if what you've sequestered is that amount out of there, and said that is only worth this amount, the amount of money it was when the TIF was established, but we're still collecting based on the current mill rate. So
Okay.
that differential comes into the town to be used for those designated projects.
So it does have an effect on the final tax rate. If the more money is in the TIF, it keeps the tax rate lower.
No, No,
No,
It keeps
what
on
you
that
pay in
leeway.
county and
Property taxes is based on your valuation, so it keeps your county tax bill down.
Which we pay in our tax rate.
Which we're paying our tax rate, but we would be paying higher if we
Right.
didn't have the TIF.
So it keeps the total tax rate lower. Of the three major components of the tax. So there is some more benefit to the TIF than I
Yeah,
thought
but
there was.
it's money that's not going to the general fund either, you know.
Whose general fund?
Ralph?
sorry, Bob.
I don't recall either seeing financials or having Raymond Waterways identify a savings account. I recall the library saying that, but I don't recall Raymond Waterways indicating that they had a savings account.
We asked, but they
Yeah, we
didn't say,
no, they get it, it's $30,000.
They did. That came back, that was sent out as an email to people.
Well, before we go to vote, I'd like to see a second vote in the water and further eradication of milfoil in our waters. And I'm gonna support the 17.5.
When is this payable? When is this payable to them? July 1st?
As soon as they bill us, and so the prudent organization will bill us on July 1. Some don't, if no bill, no pay.
If you don't bill us, we don't pay. So you wait till the end of the fiscal year, but I think most organizations have figured that out.
another question,
Drag your feet on the bill?
Mr. Goslin, do you benefit from this milfoil program financially?
No, I don't.
You're not a diver or nothing?
No, no. I will volunteer that the first year of the program ran under Nora Lee. I worked on the milfoil boat, but I
That's
haven't
fine.
since. I'm not an employee of Raymond Waterways.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Again, what we're discussing and what we're voting now is to amend the figure from 198,932 to 196,432. That is what we're voting on now. We're not voting the final motion at this point. All we're voting right now is to amend the amount, then we'll actually vote whether we approve that amount. Just so everyone's clear on what we're doing here. All right. So, the amendment on the floor is to revise the figure to 196,432 from 198,932. All those in favor? Opposed? And the amendment is defeated. We're back to the original motion, which is at $198,932. Is there additional discussion on that?
Just a question, Ralph, if I might.
Yes.
I don't recall what, probably in our paperwork somewhere, there is the maximum amount that the TIF can be. And I'm wondering where we are in relation to that.
I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, but the figure there, I think we're about $5,000 under the max.
So we're close.
Steve?
I'm somewhat concerned about the GIS part of this. I was really questioning what we were getting for the $20,000, and I don't really feel I ever got what I would consider a satisfactory answer. I actually spoke with the towns of Gray, Naples, Casco, and what the response was I got was that 20,000 is for updates. So if you've got a, culvert on the GIS, whatever. No other town is spending even half $20,000 for updates. Every town I spoke with, it's very on the order of a couple $1,000s, maybe up to 5,000 if they throw the tax maps in and everything else. I still don't know what we're getting for $20,000, and I'm on the fence as far as making an amendment to reduce that amount. If we don't do that, I would certainly request that in the next budget cycle, we get much, much more detail out of the technology committee as to what the money's being spent on and what we're getting for it.
Other discussion?
You wanna make a motion
I'm on-
to reduce it? I'll second it, because I think it's way out of line as well. It's-
I'll move that we amend to reduce this amount by $10,000 and reducing the GIS budget by that amount, the GIS portion.
Second.
Okay, so the motion now, the amendment is to amend the figure to $188,932. Discussion. Bob?
I would need more information before I voted on that motion. I just don't know how you can cut half of their budget without knowing what you're cutting.
I'm basing it on what every other town in the area is spending.
Don?
Yeah, I would say that those are not very good comparables when you look at the sophistication of the GIS program in the town of Raymond compared to those other towns. I don't think you can do it that way. You have to look at that in more of a process way, and I haven't brought the detail, but believe me, it's a well-thought-out program. It's a fractional program, of course, of another set of towns. You could pick Wyndham and other towns and show it to be a significantly low number. But that's not a good set of comparables that he cited, and I would tell you that if you were to cut the program in half, you would be making a mistake. And we certainly can provide any level of information, documentation that you would like to see. I can see that goes out, but I would caution you against doing this.
Dan?
State law requires us to update our maps. That's basically what we used to do in the past, Bob. We didn't really spend that much money on updating our maps, and that's basically what GIS, some of that is updating maps. I mean, you'd have to do a little more research, I guess, to get the whole picture, but we're spending a lot more than what's listed here, because there's another article in here that has some more money for GIS. I think it's a technology line. So in all, there's a lot more money that's in GIS than this article only, so.
Rolf, I guess what by offering this amendment, I'm just trying to make a point. Don, you say you have the detail. If I remember correctly, when I asked this question, the response came back was, is that a real question? From the technology people. All I'm trying to make a point is that going forward, I really think that group needs to come forward more with what exactly we're getting for our money.
I believe we're still plotting some of the lands in Raymond also with that money.
It is not just updates, it's plotting the lands, surveying them, making sure all the roads are correct, that, you're within a certain distance from center line to town property.
When did
It's
we
all
start
those
doing
things.
that?
We always have done that.
Well, I know, but it's ongoing.
It's ongoing, exactly. That's the
We never
point.
spent this much money, Joe.
We spent more than this.
Okay. The points have been made. The motion on the floor right now is to amend the figure in the article to $188,932. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the amendment fails. We're back to the original article, which is to see if the town will vote to appropriate $198,932. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $500,503 for the administration account.
Recommend approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Ralph?
Yes.
This actually goes back to the minutes, and this kind of goes through a number of different budgets, but as far as the pay raise, there was a straw vote, and it was 50-50, and that was the last I heard of it. And now we're into the budget at a 2%. So the half of the people who voted for 2% won based on, I have no idea.
Why wasn't it 1.5%?
Or even discussed and voted upon.
Oh, I mean, you know, that was what the selectmen, when they looked at it, they put it through at the 2%. So that's, you know, that was where, you know, as I say, where it was a 50, you know, it was a half-half, so it was, you know, they elected to use the 2% instead of the 1%.
Well, I'd like to make an amendment that we go to 1.5% on the motion. I'd like to make a motion that we go to 1.5. Since we can't discuss it, Rolf, I mean, it was 50-50.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, it was.
I need to know, I need to have a figure though, so, I mean, that's,
And that's probably, it's in
I mean,
almost every one of these.
1%
Budget.
is 22,000.
Yeah.
So
But
1.5%
that's- but-
would be 11,000.
11,000.
But that wouldn't be, would that be just for this one warrant item?
Yep,
Okay.
No, that's the entire.
the entire
Right.
budget.
So you would have to, every article,
Yeah.
you have to subtract 0.5%.
I withdraw that motion just because it's gonna take forever to do, but in the future, can we, discuss, changes like, I mean, it was something that we should have discussed, Rolf, as a budget committee. I mean, the select board can do their own thing, we're elected, we can do our own thing as well. That's what I'd like to see going forward. Thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 21, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $47,427 for the assessing account.
Move to recommend.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $18,680 for the town hall account.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion?
Do we have a new contract for heating oil for going forward, or are we under an existing contract or
I don't know the answer to that.
contract at all?
I know that she bids it annually, but,
Annually?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know where we're at on that.
There's a lot of things, Rolf, that we couldn't find out this year. Don't know the answer, and, you know, that came up often, so that's another thing I'd like to see changed, when people ask questions.
Well, actually, she must have gotten something, because she, you know, we lowered the heating oil from 49.9 to 43.20.
I remember when,
We have a new furnace.
yeah. That's not gonna do it.
We have a new furnace, which is very efficient compared to the old. I think it's better to give an answer that you don't know when you don't know. We have provided an unprecedented amount of data this year, folks. I just wanted to point that out. So if there's anything in advance that you want to know, it's very helpful that we get the questions in advance. We'll answer them and provide the documentation as we did on many, many topics.
I remember when Elizabeth Cummings was, doing her job. We had a question, she didn't know it, she'd go out back when we were in town hall. We had our meetings there, and she'd come out with a stack of books and go through them, and she'd come up with the answer, damn it. We didn't leave that meeting without having an answer. So that's my point.
Other discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $446,204 for the insurance account.
Make a motion, budget committee approve.
Second?
Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 for the general assistance account.
Make a motion, for budget committee to approve.
Second?
Steve and Peter. Discussion?
Is that high enough? What did we use last year?
We're close to 9,000 already this year. We've got 2 more months to go.
Well, is that 9,000 our total out of pocket, or is that 9,4,500?
That's what we pay, and then we get reimbursed 50% from the
Yeah.
state.
So the
So we're
9,000
still-
is really 4,500, right?
Right.
So the 6,000 really is 12,000. If you look at it in
Is
reverse.
the money from the state gonna be there in the future? Do we know that?
They're working on that. Governor has proposed restrictions,
Yep.
so Raymond never hits the level of getting 75% reimbursement, so we're always only at the 50% level, so it will never come into play for us.
So you feel that's safe? Joe?
I do.
All right.
You know,
We all-
especially Dana, when you factor in that other, the fund from the private people that,
Yeah,
so that, the town really tries
Yeah,
to
I realize that.
make use of all the other, that and prop and things like that, and this is kind of the area of last resort.
now is that fund that the town raises on its own, administered in the same manner as the general assistance?
Yes.
It is.
It's for people who do not qualify for GA, but it's the same process they go through.
To see if they're eligible for the town
And
assistance.
what does that, what can they get money for, from this account?
Just pretty
Heat,
much-
oil,
Pretty much same thing you get,
electricity,
pretty much same thing you get through general assistance.
rent?
Yep, all those things.
The only thing I would add is that we use the same forms, the same metrics for calculating poverty, but we're not bound by those as we are with general assistance. So you have to be absolutely in full compliance with all of those levels of assistance that can be granted, and those are approved each year by the Board of Selectmen. Now, with the Raymond Community Assistance, we use the metrics as a benchmark, but the idea behind the fund was also to be able to help the working poor, and originally it was set up with an emphasis on fuel oil. It's not restricted to that, so you're not bound by the state guidelines, because the general assistance is really a program of last resort for very, very poor people. And so in the Raymond Community Assistance, we have helped what we would call the struggling working poor, who would not qualify for general assistance but would still be poor.
And who might be late for their taxes. And pay 7%.
Other discussion on general assistance? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $158,489 for the technology department account.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to make an amendment to that article as well, to reduce the amount by $20,000.
Second.
So there's a motion, or an amendment offered to change the figure to $138,489.
And the reason for that is because there's GIS money's I'd like to see GIS in one budget and not snuck into other budgets, articles here, but there's GIS money in that, and I think we've already approved, enough money for GIS, so.
It's not sneaking it in per se, it was a
Well, it's
matter of,
software and,
you've got this, you've got the software component and you've got the labor, essentially the labor or the subcontract component.
yeah, but we already paid, we already have an article for the, you know, the subcontractors, part of that too, but, I mean, he doesn't have to be paid extra to install the software that,
That's not installing the software, that's maintaining and the license on the software.
yeah, but he's paid, what, 60 grand a year?
Not to the software company.
No, but that's what the, Kevin, I don't know what Kevin's title in it is anymore because it's changed.
GIS is subcontracted to an outside firm.
Yeah. But Kevin's also got GIS on his title too, Ralph.
From the standpoint of maintaining the computer systems, but he's not doing the GIS work.
Well, I understand that, we gave that to somebody else, but, I mean, I'm just not, the $20,000, I just think this technology, department account's getting out of hand, it's going crazy.
It's been flat for 3 years.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Additional discussion on the amendment.
Just a question on the amendment. There are 5 categories in technical department. Are you suggesting across the board 20% or one
Nope.
particular category?
GIS.
That was my question.
Well, there are 2 in there. One for 60,000 that has GIS tag on it, and the other one is the hardware software for 13.
This would be the 13.6.
Why can't,
It would-
couldn't,
well, it
why
would-
couldn't
it would
that
have
be
to-
moved in?
It would have to come out of the total, it's not, it would have to come out of the total technology department.
But why couldn't that be moved into the, TIF with the rest of the GIS?
Guess we're up, in future years, it might be able to, as we lower the bond payment on the other, but we're up at the max
Are we
level.
limited out?
Yeah,
We are.
you've got a max limit that you can do on the TIF. So, I think there's only, I think there, say, I don't have the exact figure, but when I'd asked on that, we have about $5,000 cushion left inside the TIF, is all we have now with what we've approved in there. All right, so the motion on the floor right now is to amend the technology department figure to $138,489. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment fails, so we're back at the original figure, which is the $158,489. Additional discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Let's see, Article 26. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $37,121 for the community development account.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion. Steve?
It appears, this is where you moved some money out of here into the TIF, specifically the 20,000 on the GIS. What else? Also, was it the 77,000 for community development was moved, or what else? Because these figures don't match.
Let me just,
I think this is where you took something out and put it in the,
probably this is for GP cog, let me just check and see here. I think that's what it was, if I remember correctly. It was the GP cog dues.
okay. And the
Of-
GIS.
Right.
All right.
So you got GP cog in Article 19?
Yes.
GIS. Can we have those listed, Rolf, in the final draft? What's going into what?
You mean,
Well, if we're gonna have
you mean for-
GIS in Article 19 and GP-COG, can we list, like we did Raymond Casco Historical and Raymond Waterways? Can we list the amount?
what actually, I mean, they're listed in this, which, this becomes part of that package that's given out, isn't it, Don?
What are you looking at?
At the town meeting. The document that they get for the town meeting includes
Yes,
this breakdown, so.
Louise will be publishing a booklet for the town meeting with the information,
So, I
correct?
mean, I think the real question is not so much listing it there as maybe removing those two and then referring people to this.
But that wasn't in last year's town report. I don't believe it was. Not at the town meeting. The town report really.
The town report, yeah, but that town
yeah,
report
that
comes out
was-
at a different time
yeah,
of year
it
anyway.
comes at a different time of
So
year.
you've got the document for the
Yeah.
town meeting.
I don't remember seeing that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Louise?
Yeah, there's always a spreadsheet with the article numbers attached to whichever article that amount of money is being used for. So there is some backup material.
Well, it wouldn't be a big deal to put it down on the article, right? I mean, just add it. I just wrote it down here.
Yeah.
Took me 2
I
minutes.
mean, almost what I'd prefer to do is say, is remove those other two from it and refer it back to, so that they're looking and seeing everything that's in there instead.
No, I'd like to see it separated. That's what I'd like to see.
Well,
So
what you
people can
want is
ask-
for them to be able to see what the items are, which is what I say.
Yeah, but I want them to look at this and not have to go back to a piece of paper and be an accountant to figure out what we're spending. That'd be the easy way, I guess, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, then you looking at doing that same expansion on every item?
On some of them, I wish we would, but we're not gonna go to that extent, I don't believe. It's up to the voters to do their homework and be involved, I guess.
Additional discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $620,433 for the fire rescue department account.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion. Bob?
Mr. Chairman, I am proud to say that I am an officer in the Raymond Fire Rescue Department. For those reasons, I will abstain from voting on this article.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $15,564 for the animal control account.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion? Steve?
In that amount, there was something for contract services. I'm assuming that's if an animal was taken to a Portland facility or something, we're paying, that's our,
Yes.
okay. It just seems like $6,000 for contract services and.
I've got a question.
Yeah, but I think some of the, if that animal is reclaimed, that gets paid back to us as a fine.
People get billed,
Yeah.
they don't always pay.
Well, Dana?
I just want to ask, how many animal control officers do we have in this town? Because the recent newspaper articles, I know we got one on loan from Naples, and I think we got two from Raymond, so. Are we
We-
paying two animal control?
We have an animal control officer and a deputy in Raymond, and then oftentimes there'll be a call for backup assistance, and we have in the past used assistance from Casco. I'm not aware that we've recently used Naples, although historically we probably have. The issue with the Naples officer was related to a specific case that involved Naples and Freiburg. It had really nothing directly to do with Raymond, so basically we have two, an ACO and a deputy ACO. And then we, through mutual aid, use other towns when we need to.
Is there a need for two? I mean, how many calls do we have? I mean, Don Alexander did it all by himself for 150 years. It's just,
Don Alexander was assisted by his wife and also by his son, so I guess strictly speaking, when I came, you had three.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Let's see, where are we? 29. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $19,600 for the infrastructure account.
Move to recommend.
Second?
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Article 30. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $645,920 for Public Works account.
Move to recommend.
Second?
Discussion. Steve?
We just got a new copy of a snowplow contract? You
Well,
passed out?
it's the original contract, and then
Okay,
what they did is they did an extension of the contract.
so this,
This was the original contract,
okay,
and then what was done, we had, they negotiated and.
and that we
had
got earlier.
Right.
Okay.
You had what those figures were, which was zero.
Right.
Was it?
So,
050.
so what we were provided with before this pretty much updates this and,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
Question, the reason I had a question is, these extra miles that are handwritten on here,
They were added that contract is just that's been renegotiated twice. That mileage was added to the town in between the first contract and the second contract.
okay, I thought this was something, this was new.
No,
The other-
it's never been a real electronic document with P&K. It's been pretty much what you got right here.
I asked a question, since you're up there, about that contract. They made a jump and then they held steady. We talked about potential, because I think next year is gonna be a tough budget season, was that they could do it more graduated.
I asked the question, I did not get a response back from him yet.
Okay.
That's something we can talk to him about. I don't know.
Would affect this year's budget though, because you're going in at the,
If I were to go back to him.
Zero, you went, because this year went in with the zero, so. Because it's 050,
Right.
so.
If I were to go to renegotiate with him on that, I would try to push it on the last 2 years. If you wanted to split it on the last two.
yeah, but we're plowing more miles, right?
No,
Well, 11,
that's what we've originally
That's
been
what-
doing. We added Brown Road, Gore Road,
but did
Carrots Hill.
P&K used to do that?
correct.
Why
Used
did we
to the
take, why did we take those away from P&K?
Well, they gave them back to us.
I mean, you,
I didn't ask for them
and
back.
didn't bring their price down?
No.
I think our negotiating team's gotta improve their,
No, that was, that was done a couple of years ago. and
Yeah, it
that was-
doesn't matter. It
But it
just-
was
Well,
done
that's-
also to keep their price down when they were looking at it that year.
P&K should be doing all those roads for that price.
The last two times we rebid this, since I've been here, we've had no competition. It's just been P&K. That's one of the reasons we renegotiated with them.
It's gotta go out to bid.
It went out formally out to bid. We spent a lot of money putting it out to bid, and we got P&K, and that was it.
Right, so I think when it comes to negotiations, we've done pretty darn well, considering we're negotiating with a friendly monopoly. And one of the ways we've kept costs as level as we have is by, over time, taking on additional responsibilities in lieu of seeing, incremental increases. And so, are there cheaper ways to do this by using a contractor? Not that we're aware of.
We've added more miles, okay, and Mr. Willard, let me quote Steve, our former gubernatorial candidate, Steve Abbott. If you can look in the phone book in the yellow pages and you can find it, the town or the state shouldn't be doing it. And I believe in that, and the town shouldn't be taking more responsibility on roads. We should be subbing that out to private contractors.
We advertised
that's-
in several different papers, Dana, on the last time we bid this. I believe it was like 5 different papers. Put it online. There was a construction magazine, we put it in, and we got nothing.
The other thing I would say is the town about 10 years ago did exactly what Mr. Desjardins suggested, and what they ended up with was a disaster. It was pretty much decided very quickly to go back to a town public works crew. You will recall that experiment where you needed to have a contract for each and every operation you performed, and just the sheer magnitude of trying to administer such a system, let alone the significantly increased cost, convinced even the most fiscally conservative that the phone book approach to public works was unworkable.
On the scope.
May I add this, that our neighboring towns are doing it very successfully, but I guess Casco and Naples don't count.
Okay.
Okay.
Additional discussion on Public Works. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $450,604 for the solid waste account.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. See if the town will vote to, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $16,760 for the cemetery account.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion is carried. See if the, Article 33, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $12,997 for the Parks and Recreation account.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion. Dana?
I thought the Raymond baseball and soccer were coming out of the that Luther Gullet Fund. What's going on with that?
Is that note incorrect?
Because that's how it was. Well, no, that's how it was approved this year too, I thought.
Is there money under revenue, Ralph?
Because Raymond and Rattler is basically registrations, and then the other two would be Article 33, but I thought Raymond baseball and soccer were coming out of.
3,000 into Luther Gullet.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Okay.
Yeah, to the revenue.
So it goes out, it's back in.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mike.
Steve?
I have to then give once again question on the format of the warrant. Here, we're now pulling out specific line items. Why?
Yeah.
So I think we need to be consistent. Either we should pull out line items or have a budget to go along with it, so to refer to it.
Thank you.
The only reason that things are pulled out is what Rolf said earlier, history, and that under the TIF, for instance, is long obsolete, but nobody's instructed us otherwise or voted otherwise, so it's remained year to year. But originally, it was put in that format because somebody wanted to see that. Somebody made a motion, like Mr. Desjardins, to see that, and so it's carried forward. It certainly could be eliminated at this point, given the level of detail that's provided.
Ralph?
Well, I guess from a practical standpoint, could it be pulled out at this point where the selectmen
Not
already
this year, but a subsequent year.
have made yeah. But going forward, then, Bob?
I can fully understand your point. But as a citizen, my question would be, we have a Parks and Rec department, so this kind of further breaks it down and saying what these Park and Rec monies go to.
No, but what Dana's point is that not everything that it's going to is listed there.
Well,
I
there is
think
an
there
Article
is.
33 in this.
It is. Everything's listed.
Yeah, and park and recreation is not part of the town, Bob. It's all volunteer. We pretty much survive on dues and generous donations.
Sweat equity.
But we do have user fees. But, it's sometimes, like in the past, Raymond Baseball, and in the soccer program, what we did with the soccer program, we traded off mowing services. The town would, and the soccer program at first couldn't come up with that money in dues because it would have made the user fees kind of expensive for kids. It would have been, I figured it out, it would have been around $40 per child. In a lot of towns, that's not a lot of money, because travel soccer, you're paying $50, $60, or more. So, it's, that's why that $2,000 came about, but, that Luther Gulick Fund was, designated for recreation, so taking the money from that fund for baseball, softball, and soccer, I thought would be prudent, so.
Other discussion?
And it shouldn't come from the town. The less involvement they have with the town, I think the better it is, but, 'cause and that's another group, I'd like to see how much they have in the checkbook. I'm part of them. I don't know, I have no idea, but I'd like to know. And I think everybody here, in this audience, if we're gonna be giving, public funds to a group, we should know how much money they have. I mean, we don't have to advertise it, but
Other discussion on Parks and Recreation? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. See if, Article 34, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $37,500 for the Raymond Village Library.
Move to recommend?
Second the motion?
Discussion.
just wanna remind people that it used to be $20,000 not that long ago.
All those in favor? Opposed? None? Motion carried. Article 35, see whether the town will vote to carry forward any existing fund balance in the capital improvement account.
Motion to recommend.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? Motion carried. Let's see. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,291,810 for the capital improvement account.
Motion to recommend.
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah, that number doesn't look right to me. I'm looking at original, budget of this being around $626,000. I don't understand the big hike there.
Well, that was when what was done there was moving the fire and rescue CIP as well as bumping up the road maintenance based on taking funds from the sale of the tower.
So it's an extra $225,000 in road maintenance. It's an extra $400,000 in capital improvement.
which is the truck for the town and also the fire department CIP. I think that adds up to about 690,000, something like that.
Steve?
I'm just having it looks, from alternative 4 to this warrant, it's, alternative 4 was actually higher. I'm just wondering what, it looks like almost 20,000 was cut out. What was cut out?
We took 10,000 out of the truck.
And 10,000 out of the ambulance,
So the truck's now at around, is 90K?
That's
around 100.
What, alternative 4 is 100,086.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that's the pavement. Where's the truck?
Truck was originally 110, it's down to 100.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the other one out of the
The
ambulance?
ambulance, I think, was 180, it's down to 170.
Yeah, but you didn't need an ambulance in this, you didn't ask for an ambulance, you asked for what, generator and, land? Money for land? Wasn't that your original request for?
By moving the CIP for the ambulance up, it keeps us in the rotation that we need to be in to get the 4-year, the 3 or 4 year rotation for the ambulance, so that works better for us. So that's where that was moved.
Okay. But are you gonna be looking for any funds for land?
Are we looking for land? We are actively seeking land.
So, does the money come out of this Article 36 for that? Where's that money coming from, Bruce?
Currently don't have anything planned in a line item for funding for that.
Okay. But that was one of your original requests.
Correct.
Now, why would you let that go and the generator, you don't have a generator at District 1?
We do. The generator was actually for the tower site,
For the
because
tower
that would
site.
have to be on a backup power supply.
Okay.
Correct.
So you're giving that up? Is that what your plans are, or?
Yes, there are a few things in here that we're gonna have to look at and readdress. We do know that.
But how old are your current ambulances right now? You got a fairly new one,
One is
right?
new and the other one would be approaching that 10-year mark. It's an '04.
It's an '04?
And we had planned on rotating everything in that 10-year plan. The
Yeah.
new plan with the joint and regional bid is actually, will work out to be a cheaper process for us in the long run, with cost control measures in place by capping the cost of the ambulance and giving us a definitive trade-in value for that, but it is on a shorter turnaround.
Now, I was reading in the paper Sunday that, I forget what town it was, but they had a turnaround time on their ambulances for 15 years. I mean, is that something that we could look at, or is that undoable, or?
Yeah, we're getting, at that point, you're getting up there. I mean, the ambulance we just traded in or sold outright, we were
Yeah.
only able to get $7,000 for. It was
Yeah.
costing us $6,000 or $8,000 a year in that vicinity to maintain it every year. And it was just at the 10-year mark.
How many
So
miles
that-
was on that?
125.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in there.
The problem with Raymond is we're so far away from the hospitals that mileage
Yeah,
racks up
I
fairly
understand.
quickly.
Yeah, Nathan's reminded me, it was in the 140 range, so it was above the 130 mark.
So you're not looking at a tower or a?
Oh, yes, we're looking at a tower. We've got a couple deals in the works right now that we may be able to get a part of that donated to us.
Yeah, so
And,
the rest of the funding is gonna be,
We're gonna have to figure out some way of making it happen.
all right.
Other discussion on the CIP? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, the fun one. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $627,814 for the county tax account.
Move to recommend.
I reluctantly second.
Discussion? Dana?
Since we're giving, the county guys, all this, the bennies, the car washes and the gyms and down here, they're down here a lot. Shouldn't we be getting a discount for keeping their employees healthy? Come on. It's just,
There's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of things we should be getting from them.
their budget, it just keeps ballooning. It just,
Sam and I had a great meeting today with the Sheriff Joyce, and the Chief Deputy, and we actually suggested, what can we do to get you here even more than you are now, because I think this is a great thing for the town, and so they're very happy with the relationship they have and the, I guess, the amenities that the town offers, and I'm telling you that anything that, within reason, that we could offer them to get the Sheriff's Deputy, the State Police to come into our town more often would be to our great benefit, and we're very happy with the Sheriff's service.
oh, I agree. To some point, yes.
Other discussion on the county tax? Not that we can do much about it anyway. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. See if the town will vote to appropriate the total sum of $2,074,300 from estimated non-property tax revenues to reduce the property tax commitment together with all categories of funds which may be available from the federal government and any other sources. Note this sum includes $705,000 derived from the cell tower easement sale.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, the obvious question is, how did we get from 905 to 705?
Well, the 705 includes the CIP money, the road maintenance money,
So what-
and then the 195,000 is probably about another $10,000 in legal fees that have come out of that 900.
The remaining 100, let's see, 100,
How
help me with
much
the
in
math.
legal fees?
About 10,000
Wow.
altogether,
Yes.
which we think will actually pay in this fiscal year, so we actually may end up with a $195,000 balance, which goes into the undesignated fund balance.
I guess that'd be my only question, again, from a public, if anyone's watching this from the public, and they're in the meeting, they're going, hold it here, we're selling this, going back to 10, I just agreed to sell this for 900,000, and this is only 705, it may be worthwhile, I don't know, if just time, to somewhere let people know that it's going into the undesignated fund balance, the remainder. So there isn't a question. Just, see what I'm saying? If they start doing some quick math, they're gonna say, we're missing some money.
We usually explain these articles at town meetings, so.
Dana?
The only issue I had with that is, I personally, I wanted all that money to go to roads, and nothing else, because our roads need the work, and, it was 800 and some $1,000 that could have been used for better things than what they're being used for.
That's your opinion.
That's my opinion, yes.
The Board of Selectmen came up with their opinion,
Yep,
and,
yep.
that's,
Opinions are, are like, that's what they are.
yeah, everybody has one.
Other discussion? Oh, Peter?
Saying that some of the funds from the tower sale will go into undesignated fund balance causes me to itch a little bit, because we've decided not to take any of that money and use for lowering the tax rate.
Doesn't mean we won't.
That's true. It's there in the future if you need it.
We don't set the mill rate till September.
That's correct. I watched that date vividly. But is, presumably that money, though, isn't far away. It's there if you need it. So, such as being in the bank downtown,
Very liquid.
right?
Well,
Yes.
I think one of the things we talked about with this money also was keeping a little bit in reserve, because we don't know what's gonna happen at the state level. And if the state ends up at a proposal that currently we will lose some funds, we could have a special town meeting and possibly use what's left over to help this year. If that doesn't happen, I think next year we will have that money and we can make it a specific one-time use also, be it for roads, be it for something else, so that it's there. I think we heard when we talked about this, that folks wanted to designate that money. We heard from the public. They wanted to designate that money for use, not for undesignated fund balance. But I think this way it gives us a little bit of an insurance policy going forward, depending what the state does. And a year from now, we're probably, whoever's sitting here is gonna be talking about how we spent that, whatever the number ends up being, less legal fees. I think you'll find it'll be in an article next year, when the town has a better idea of exactly what the number is and what happened with the state.
Our revenue sharing is about 200 and something thousand a year. So if they freeze revenue sharing to zero, which they may do, this covers that shortfall.
Well, the other thing you've got is if indeed they don't do the homestead exemption, that's 55,000, right?
We're also getting rid of a lot of debt coming up too, so.
Yep. Other discussion on this? All those in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Article 39, see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to accept or reject grants, donations, and/or gifts of money to the town of Raymond and to expend monies donated for specific purposes.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion's carried. Article 40, see if the town will vote to accept certain state funds as provided by the Maine State Legislature during the fiscal year to begin July 1st, 2013, and any other funds provided by any other entity, including but not limited to municipal revenue sharing, local road assistance, emergency management assistance, snowmobile registration money, tree growth reimbursement, general assistance reimbursement, veterans exemptions reimbursements, state grants, and other funds.
Move to recommend?
Second.
Discussion. Dana?
The only thing I have a question on is tree growth reimbursement. Is there a list of property owners that have gotten out of the tree growth and don't want to come back to the tree growth program? Is that list available? Because doesn't that money go to one of our committees, Raymond
Canopy?
Conservation? So how much did we give to the Conservation Committee this year?
I think last year was about 15,000.
So is there a number, what's the number on the penalties this year? Do we know that, or? Is that something we could find out, Rolf?
Yep.
Can you write that down, and I'd like to know that number, and if there's a list of people or property owners.
There are two things that happen with tree growth. You have the folks who take it out because they're selling property or they're converting it from tree growth to non-tree growth. Those are the monies that go to conservation. And then we just had at our last meeting, we had information about folks who have not filed their 10-year plan. So if they don't follow through on that, then their property comes out of tree growth without them wanting to do it, and then there's gonna be penalties from that as well.
So when's the penalty
They
go
have,
in effect?
they have up to 2 years
2
from
years.
notice that they have to get it done. We're now at I think we're just approaching year 1. We've done 1 notice. We're about to send second notice, and if they don't comply by the end, then it,
I'd still like to know the number, Rolf, that we get, and, what the intentions of the Conservation Committee, what are they gonna use that money for? Is that gonna be used for
Open space.
open space, and, I'd like to know what their plans are. It'd be nice to know a general plan of this committee, what they, if they have any, plots of land that they're envisioning to purchase, or, but, you know, I'd just like to know what they have in the bank would be nice, in their account. I think the town administers that account, so it shouldn't be a big job to get that.
I think they have about 33,000 in
Yeah.
that account.
Can we get an exact amount, please?
And remember, the number fluctuates year to year, because it all depends how much tree growth is
Yeah.
removed. So not every year you don't have an automatic number that
Yeah.
comes in.
But you already know what they're gonna get this year, right?
No,
You don't? When are you gonna know that figure?
I don't know.
June 30, end of the fiscal year, but one thing's certain, there's not enough money.
In the bank and in that account to purchase anything they're interested in. That's certain.
Well, you know, it's just,
Well, some of the money's not immediately spendable by them anyway, it's.
They have to come to town.
yeah, they
They
do.
have to come to town meeting to
Right,
have that
they-
approved
because they
because
had
of the
all
way,
the
because of the
approvals
way
they
that it
wanted.
was, yeah.
Or they needed, rather, if they had all their approvals and they knew the parcels and they do, they have parcels identified that they're interested in. So if all of that was set, the missing component would be enough money to buy the land.
I believe part of what they're looking at is the land by you.
Yeah,
Yeah. My property, that's right.
Okay, other discussion on accepting,
and the reason I bring that up, that's public money, okay, that they're using, right? And it's gotta be advertised, and it's gotta be, the public needs to know where that money is being spent.
Well, it has-
Rolf,
yeah.
that's why
because
I'm
it has,
making that a
they
point.
can't unilaterally spend it, there has to.
I
be-
realize that, but, you know, it's gotta be out in the open as well.
And there has to be public access to it.
That's right.
Other discussion on? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Article 41, to see if the town will vote to utilize the voting machine reserve in the amount of $6,500 for fiscal year 2013-14 property tax relief.
Move to recommend.
Second?
Discussion. Dana?
Are we gonna budget again next year for that, or?
No, what's happening is the state is.
Oh, I see that.
The state is going in buying machines, and then they'll be supplying those back,
All right.
as opposed to us having to lease them, so. There still will be, under elections though, how, in the elections account for programming the chip.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? Motion carried. Article 42 would only come into play if Articles 10 and 38 were defeated. 10 and 38, or 10 and, or 38 were defeated at the town meeting, which would then require increasing the LD1 amount. And that is, I'm sure that's the reason that the selectmen made no recommendation on it, because of the belief, you know, of the hope that it's, you know, that this motion, or this article will never come to the floor. Because if everything passes prior to that, then we're underneath the LD1 limit, so we don't need to vote to increase the LD1 limit.
Can we have discussion now, or do you have to wait till there's a motion on the floor?
I'll move for discussion purposes.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to propose an amendment. I would really like to see the word increase changed to exceed.
Second.
so there's an amendment.
And my reasoning behind this is we've got roughly a $705,000 windfall built into this budget. If 10 and 38 are not approved, obviously, I would like to go back and re-budget. However, this amendment will come up, and by leaving the word increase in there, we're building in a $705,000 windfall forever. The difference between those two words is exceed is a 1 year, one time only. Increase raises that limit, and it's forever. So we're taking the sale of this tower and building it into all future budgets, which I don't think we should do. If we have to invoke this because of a problem, it's a one-time exception.
Discussion on the amendment.
I'd ask any of the board members sitting here if they, when you wrote this article, if there was,
It's a technicality, because you still have to bring in the revenue to do that.
The amendment doesn't change anything.
So the one word won't really
One-
No, but
matter to anyone.
It sticks out, though. I see your point.
I'm not
The one-
against.
The one increase is base, the other is a one-time override.
Yeah. And that's the intent of
Right.
LD1.
So, I mean, the
1 year.
chances of, first of all, I'm confident that 10 and 38 are gonna pass, but if they don't, next year, I don't see the Board of Selectmen saying, let's start off at a much higher base level. It's just,
I still like to change that word.
But yeah, but if that's the case, I don't see any reason not to change the word and not to have even the question out there, whether that could happen or not.
Well, the way, just so you'd be clear on what would happen here, if first of all, we approve the amendment, the way that it would, and then vote to accept that.
that's.
The way it would be written is, it would be written as it is now, but it says the selectmen make no recommendation. The budget committee recommends the amount, but as an increase, not as.
No, an exceed, not an increase.
Yes, as exceed, not an increase.
Right.
That's fine.
So that's, so then when it comes to the floor, then, that's how it would, because we can't go back and
understand.
rewrite the original warrant article.
But I think I
Just so-
watched.
just so you're clear
No,
on it.
I watched the
Yeah.
selectmen's meeting, and there was no discussion about this, and I wish
Yeah.
I would have been here to bring up, so there could have had the discussion on it, but, so I wanted to bring it, unfortunately, I watched it from home on my, recovering from a cold, so.
Let's see. Other discussion on the amendment? So what we're voting on is the changing of that word to increase, or to exceed from increase. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion is defeated, so we're back to the original motion.
Do we have an original motion?
The original motion, yes, the original motion was
No, I
as
think we
written.
do.
No.
Then I will make the original motion.
No, it's already, because defeating of the amendment, we go back to the original motion, which was what you had originally moved that and was seconded, so. Discussion on that.
Can you repeat the original motion, please?
The original motion is, see if the town will vote to increase the property tax level, excuse me, to see if the town will vote to increase the property tax limit of $2,175,143.47 established for the town of Raymond by law by $705,000 for a total levy limit of $2,808,143.47 in the event that Articles 10 or Article 38 are not approved.
And and the motion was to make no recommendation or make a
No, the
recommendation?
motion was to recommend the article.
Okay, thank you.
To recommend it,
Yes.
which is different than the
Right.
select.
I mean, you know, if, not to make it more complex, but what could always, you know, there could be another, you know, there could be an amendment to make no recommendation, and we would have to vote that, and then to accept the amendment, and then vote that. Or we can stay with what's on the table right now, which is to recommend the article.
A question.
Yes.
If we, as a board, chose not to recommend this,
Mhm.
then in the event of the failure of 10 and 38, this would throw it back into a budget committee meeting, rather than just an automatic override.
No.
No.
No, it would
You'd have to
just,
go back
at that
and-
point, if we said, if our recommendation was no, that would just be a recommendation. It still is at the
Behest of the community.
behest of the town meeting on what they do. All this is doing is giving a recommendation. Either the budget committee either recommends it, not recommends it, or makes no recommendation.
If I can.
Yes.
Procedurally, what you would do is go back to the warrant article where you raised all the money and reduce that sum by $705.
Okay.
And this way, the budget all balances.
I understand that. My thinking is, by voting no, we would send a message to the community. Would we be sending the right message by saying, no, we don't want to recommend increase without revetting the process?
But you can always reconsider Article 38. Make a motion to reconsider at town meeting, Article 38, take out the $705,000, and that gets you back to where you were as a budget.
But you can't do that when Article 42 is being presented.
Yes, you could.
Yes, you can.
All right.
Because our move to reconsider, it takes precedence over the item on the floor.
Okay.
Steve?
Well, I can't support this simply because it is a automatic, it'll be a tax increase. And it will be a forever tax increase. So, I'm actually, now, I didn't realize it's interesting that we could actually potentially go back and reconsider 38 and reduce that, which I think is the prudent thing to do. So I would not want to vote for a recommendation on this article. That's the motion on the floor to recommend,
The
correct?
motion on the floor is to recommend.
Correct.
Okay.
But you could offer an amendment right now to make
You
no
could-
recommendation.
You could do that, you know.
I thought we had to defeat this one.
No, you can, because your First Amendment failed. So you can now make a new
Okay,
amendment.
I would like to
which is
make an amendment
Which is to.
to not recommend,
Okay, so,
I'll second.
To not recommend?
to not recommend.
Which was your original one, so you can't.
or
do
no,
that.
or is it to, wait, no.
Make no
Wait a minute,
recommendation.
no, or is it to not recommend or make no
No, my-
recommendation?
My original amendment was to change the wording.
Right. Well,
Right.
but if your motion is, if you're trying to amend to say not recommend, that's an improper motion because
That's
the
what I
motion, the motion on the floor is to recommend.
Right.
You can make an amendment that would say to make no recommendation. That would be
All right.
appropriate, because the other becomes a negative
All right, I'll wait for the
Negative. motion.
potential chance to say negative, but
Isn't that what he just did?
No,
no.
no, his amendment was going to be to not recommend, which is a reversal of the, you can't do that.
Right, that's what I
because-
thought.
But what he could do is he could make an amendment to make no recommendation. That would be
Okay.
allowable.
I'm waiting for that one.
Steve?
I'd like to make amendment, no recommendation.
Second.
Second, Bob, you seconded that?
That is correct.
Okay. Just so everyone is clear, so now what we're discussing is to amend the article to make no recommendation, not make a no recommendation, but to make no recommendation. We would then still have to go back and have a second vote, but this is just to accept, to approve the amendment. Everybody clear on that?
It's like the Three Stooges, Dan.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, the amendment passes.
Go back to 38.
So now, what we're voting on is to make no recommendation.
Thought we just did that.
No, we voted to accept your amendment.
My amendment.
Or we voted to accept the amendment. Now, now we're making that as our,
We're accepting the motion as amended.
okay? Is everyone clear there?
Are we still in discussion mode?
Yes. Yes.
The reason I made that amendment is because all the proceeding of the townspeople that spoke, talked about roads, everybody seemed to be in favor of selling that property. So I want to push that 38 and 10 should pass, because that $705,000 is going to the town for the road, basically road construction. And that was what I heard from the public.
But a lot of that 75's not going to roads, Steve.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Okay, so the motion on the floor right now is to make no recommendation on this warrant article. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll go in as makes no recommendation. Last item is Article 43. Shall the town, number one, approve a road reconstruction and repaving program at an estimated cost of $2 million, and two, appropriate a sum not to exceed $2 million to the fund, to fund the cost of this program, including the cost of issuance of, including the cost of issuance, and to fund said appropriations, authorize the treasurer and chairman of the Board of Selectmen to issue general obligation securities of the town of Raymond, including temporary notes in anticipation of the sale thereof, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2 million, and at the direction to fix the date, maturities, and interest rates, denominations, calls, redemptions, places of payment, forms, refunding, and other details of said securities, including execution and delivery of said securities on behalf of the town of Raymond, and to provide the sale thereof, if hereby delegated to the treasurer and chairman of the Board of Selectmen. This is the article to approve, or to have the town approve the $2 million bond for the road construction work.
I move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Recommend.
This appears just to be for one $2 million bond,
That's correct.
and I assume that the bonding agent is okay with the changes we made in the CIP plan and the TIF, because those will come into covenants to the bond.
We have a lot of debt capacity. We're a very
Okay.
low debt tip.
I wouldn't want to get caught in some kind of negative covenant with the TIF.
Steve?
We're asking the townspeople if they want to go out to bond for $2 million. We're not asking them where the interest is going to come from. Are we really asking them to come up with 2.2?
Well, you're asking them to approve issuing $2 million in bonds, and the explanation it gives, that's where you talk into the total bond indebtedness and whatnot, where the interest and things like that. But you're actually, what you want is the authorization to go out and issue the $2 million in worth of bonds.
Well, I understand that, but we're not. So the 220,000 is just got to come a little bit at a time over 10 years.
Right, because if you look, if you go into the final financial statement there, it tells you that, you've got the principal of $2 million, interest of $220,000 for a total in bond indebtedness of $2,220,000. Steve?
Timing on this, are we now looking at 2014 construction season on this? Because by the time this actually gets all done and.
Right.
So we'll have the $500,000 this year.
Correct.
to get kick-started on the roads, and then by 2014, this will kick in. It has to be spent
Within 3 years.
3 years, so we'll have, in essence, we've got paving funding for 4 years taken care of.
Right.
And you also, have the 10-year plan in place, you can set whatever college you want, and then we have 2 other bonds, I think, or 3 other bonds that are expiring, so.
But really, I think,
That will be paying this down.
right, but I think the discussion that I had heard was the 500 to 750,000 is what you can basically spend
Per year.
effectively per year, so, all right.
Dana?
My question is to, you know, do we have a plan? Where's, you know, where's the money? Is it gonna go 1 year and, you know, which roads are we gonna fix? That's,
Yep.
I'd like to see that plan, and it'd be nice to,
It was an addendum to the
right here.
Road Improvement Committee recommendation package, but it's driven from the road management program, which is continually updated, so that becomes the driving force behind the thing as far as designating what roads should be being repaired and whatnot, because the inputs that go in there also factor in road usage limits and things like that, so that if that's, you know, if in that program it sees something that changes, it can move, you know, it can move something because of, or if some condition happens, you know.
is
you
that
have some-
that program doesn't have to drive on the roads.
No.
It's pretty simple to figure out which roads need repair in Raymond.
Well, yeah, it is,
I
it
mean,
is, but then you've got.
especially in the spring.
But you also have the nuancing of that factors in road usage and things like that, because what, you know, and you're trying to look at the useful life of that road. So if you've got a road with high use, even though, you know, it may deteriorate quicker than what you would think, so that it may get done ahead of something that you thought was going to, only because, but if we're using that as an objective tool that is helping to drive the thing, then we've got something we can point back and say, hey, you know, this is where,
Yeah.
so.
Because
But
the Plains Road is really bad. That's gotta be high on the priority list.
Which actually brings, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, so giving this as part of the information, at least of what roads are gonna be paved, I don't know if, that could just create a real disaster, but,
I think it's on the website.
is it?
I think
Okay,
so.
all right. Because that may be one discussion at the town, I'm sure that they're gonna wanna know what's getting done first.
Other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? None? Motion carried. Okay, the other thing that we wanted to look at was when we could get back together again. Hopefully there's nothing else that's gonna come up before the town meeting, and what I would, if it does, then we would have to call us, you know, be called into session if there's a financial item that comes up there. But what I'd like to do is look at a date after the town meeting, and we can get people back together so we can look at anything we want to proactively start looking at for next year. Dana?
Is there any reason, Rolf, that we can't meet and get some correspondence from the RSU, and somehow maybe we can make a recommendation on the school budget? I mean, we are the Budget Finance Committee. It'd be nice to get correspondence from the RSU and at least meet at least once before the elections and the vote, because they are voting on that budget. And I'd like to make a recommendation on the school budget. I mean,
Unfortunately, your state legislators did not feel the same. And when they established the RSU law, they cut totally out review by,
well, we can still make one, doesn't mean it will matter, but we did it before on the select board. We made a recommendation, and I think the budget committee can make one, whether it means anything or not. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a statement that it's time that they tighten their belts a little bit That's my opinion again, but, you know, their budget's, is getting larger.
They're meeting this week, Wednesday, to vote on the budget.
The school board.
The school board is, it was, the agenda just came out today, and plus there was an article in the newspaper, I don't know if you saw it, about them cutting $150,000. So I'd love to see people go down and complain with this.
I mean, we try to nickel and dime our fire departments, our road construction people, and here they are, $38 million, something like that. 39. Come on, give me a break. It's not that I'm not gonna stop trying to be fiscally responsible on the town side, but I think we should have an input. At least say something as a board, and make a recommendation. It's just, again, my opinion, because it's a lot of money, gentlemen and ladies.
I mean, you know, we can certainly ask by, you know, I can be pretty well assured what the answer's gonna be.
We don't have to ask, we just have to make a recommendation. I don't think we have to ask, Ron. You know, come on.
Following through on Dana's idea, which I think we know that'll probably go, but if we did it, but I'd like to see the final tax rate, given all our best estimates that we have right now, and what the school budget is planning, what will that tax rate most apt to be come September something? That could be done.
Yeah.
But we don't say anything about it.
Yeah.
No one from the town, except a few of us who happen to stumble into John Valentine,
Yeah.
might make a statement. I think it's too bad.
And that's not really news either, so it's.
But getting back to my original point there, I think, probably the month after the town meeting would be time for us to, call us back together so we can, by then, then we'll see who the new people are, if there's new people, and then we can, look at things we may wanna do differently or whatever in the next cycle. And what I'll do is I'll send out an email and try and get some open dates on people once we get closer to that, so that, we can pick a date that's gonna work for everybody.
So we're not gonna discuss the school budget at all?
I mean,
This is a good forum, Rolf, because
Well, the
we're
problem-
on TV, and we have different opinions as a different board than the school board does. I mean, all the school board wants to do is spend money, and, you know, it's, I think we have a different perspective, you know, regardless on this board, that we can, not make a change, but we can, it's good information, you know, for the public. I mean, it'd be nice to, I'm gonna go to the meeting, myself, but, you know, and I encourage everybody else to go, but, at least watch it on TV. But, that's a big chunk of change, and again, we are the Budget Finance Committee. Just something that I feel we should be doing.
My only concern is $39 million. People had to tolerate me over a $2 million. I just don't see, I wouldn't have the time to fairly even comment on the budget without going through it in detail, and
I have to agree with Steve, it's a
Oh, yeah.
lot, it's a lot to absorb and to make recommendations on, and you know, it's a lot bigger budget, like Steve said, than what we're looking at here, and
But nobody
not that it's impossible, but
nobody
it would,
challenges them, Bob.
it would be labor intensive.
Nobody challenges them. The city council in Wyndham doesn't challenge them. Our select board doesn't challenge them. I don't know if Wyndham's got a budget finance committee, but we do. And at least we could take a quick look at it and say, yeah, we don't like it. It's not that, I mean, look what it's going up from last year. You know, it's not, I don't think it's asking that much, but, yeah, it's a big budget. Steve, you're right. It's absolutely big, but, I'd like to see us make in the future, recommendations on the school budgets. I think it's important because the more that you expose these budgets, the better, the people know what's going on.
Well, I mean, the big key is, is people going to the meetings. that they
I went to the Raymond meeting, there was 5 people in the audience, 5. One of them was a selectman, I was there, and there was 2 citizens from Wyndham, and there was a citizen from Deep Cove. 5 people. So, and the camera people. So, school board meetings really don't attract the big crowd
No.
in Wyndham. They used to over here. I mean, I remember when, we stood up as a community and said no 1 year or 2, but,
Oh, actually, we did last year, when we got outvoted by Wyndham, too.
Yeah.
I think we,
yeah.
I mean, you have elected people on the school committee that supposedly watch your interest. That's what it
I
comes
mean,
down
the
to.
unfortunate part is that we have, we're 2 against 5.
6 against 3.
It's 3.
6-3, yeah, so, but.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the people who are on there from Raymond are, watching your interest and maybe voting against part of the budget, that's all you could ask for.
Other items?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you all.